Good morning, class. I hope you're doing very well today. My name is Janek the Arts, and today we got another comparison video, but this time I'm going to compare traditional art to digital art. So I'm going to talk about pros and cons of both of those categories, and at the end I'm going to try and conclude which of those, in my opinion, is better. So yeah, thank you for the recent support of the channel, and let's get right into the video. Now, I'm going to start with traditional art, and let's first of all talk about the pros of it. So, the first advantage of traditional art is that at the start, when you're starting to do traditional art, it can be cheaper because you don't have to buy that much expensive equipment to start drawing. You just need really a piece of paper and a pencil. And this is one of the best and main advantages of drawing traditionally. It is that it is very cheap at the start. You don't need any kind of, let's say, I don't know, expensive workplace, like some kind of very fancy equipment or anything like that. You can make very beautiful drawings and very good artworks with just very simple utensils. You don't have to just spend, let's say, hundreds of dollars just buying the most expensive stuff and then you consider yourself to be a good artist. It doesn't really work like that. You can make beautiful things with a very simple and low budget, and you can also, on the other side, you can be pretty bad at drawing with very expensive equipment. So this is the main advantage of drawing traditionally, is that at the start, when you're just starting to draw, you don't have to spend that much money. You just need a piece of paper, maybe a pencil, or I don't know, like a pen maybe, and then you start drawing, and it's not like a very high cost. Like obviously when you, for example, expand in the future, you will need more equipment to learn more things, but you know, what I'm saying is that at the start, traditional art can be very easy and very cheap to actually implement. You don't need to buy some kind of, let's say, very expensive, fancy stuff like that to start drawing. So this is the first main advantage of traditional art. Now, other advantages of drawing traditionally is that, for example, is a bit easier to learn. The learn curve of drawing traditionally is a bit better and a bit easier than the digital one. I don't really know why that is. Like, for example, in my experience, I can say that learning to draw digitally was a bit harder, and maybe this is mainly due to me just switching my entire, let's say, style, because obviously when you start drawing something from like the start and you don't really know what to do, you, for example, need to develop your own art style again. You need to learn everything like from the start. You need to learn everything from like the dead end, and it just kind of goes, you know. Maybe my experience was that because I've been drawing traditionally for a big part of my life. I remember my first drawings were like I was in the first grade of primary school. So it is like, let's say, I think at this point 10 years of just drawing traditional art. And digitally, I have been drawing, like my drawings that I do on the channel, I have been drawing for like maybe half a year. So this may be the reason that, for example, I'm personally experiencing that I find digital art to be harder. But what I can see online and like with other people is that digital art can be harder to learn. And coming back to my main point is that traditional art is better and easier to learn, since there is a bit less stuff that you need to remember, and the techniques can be a bit easier because you don't have to, let's say, tweak with the settings in your drawing app or something like that. So traditional art can be also pretty easy to learn because you don't need to remember that much things, and you don't need to, let's say, remember about all of the different techniques. You can just, let's say, implement them a bit later. So this is one of also the best advantages of traditional art. And also, it is kind of biased, but you know, I will still include it. Traditional art is better for your eyesight. And what I mean by this is that, you know, when you draw digitally, you need to have some form of tablet and some form of a screen to actually draw. And you know, when you spend too much time behind the monitor, your eyesight can get harmed in a bad way. But when it comes to drawing on paper and just drawing traditionally, you don't have that problem because you're just not exposed to a screen. So you just drawing on paper and you don't have that problem that your eyesight might be bad. Speaking from experience. When you're drawing on paper and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about, let's say, spending too much time drawing, because there is never a limit when it comes to drawing on paper. Like, you don't have to, let's say, watch your time and stuff like that. Like, obviously when you have some sort of, let's say, small time span to draw. Like, obviously you need to remember, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to digital art, you obviously need to like monitor your, let's say, screen time. But when you draw on paper, you don't have to remember that much. So this is also the very big advantage of a traditional art. And now that we are done with the main advantages, let's go also to the cons of drawing traditional. Now, this is a bit contradicting when it comes to my first point, but when you're drawing traditionally, the worst thing about it is that your, let's say, equipment could become experience over the long run. Like, I know at the start I said that it is pretty cheap, but what I meant was that at the start it can be cheap. You just start out with like a piece of paper and a pen, but over the long run, when you start to get into it, you buy more paper, you buy, let's say, more equipment, you buy more utensils, pens, pencils, different types of them, and it can get pretty expensive over the long run. It is unfortunately a reality that many people face when you draw traditionally for your own and you don't want to take digital art. The main con is that it can be pretty expensive when you're doing this for a long time. Like the amount of paper you buy, for example, the amount of pencils you buy, the amount of utensils you need to have, it can be pretty piling up and, it will become expensive in the long run. So this is probably the worst part about traditional drawing. And also, traditional drawings are much more vulnerable to being stolen. And I know that, for example, in the digital world, it is much easier to, let's say, copy and steal a picture and just plastering your own maybe signature over a drawing that you didn't do. But what I'm saying is that when you draw traditionally, it is pretty easy to steal someone's drawing, and then when they actually do that, there is very little that you can do. Because when you have digital drawings, you can, for example, always have a backup of them. You can always have a simple copy and you don't have to worry about that much stuff getting stolen. But when it comes to traditional art, you just draw one example of your drawing, and then when someone steals it, it's gone. You don't really have that much power to, let's say, recover it. And this is pretty sad, but what I'm saying is that like one of the cons of drawing traditionally is that it is much more vulnerable to getting stolen. And this is also main con of traditional drawings. So I think when it comes to the traditional aspect, we are done. So now that we have everything said about traditional art, let's go on to the digital. And now, again, let's talk about the pros first. Now, digital art is, first of all, way easier to share with other people. When you have your drawings that you do digitally, you can share them much easier than when you have your, let's say, drawings that are on paper, because you have social media, you can copy the pictures that you do, you can send them, let's say, everywhere on the internet. But when it comes to traditional drawing, when you want to share something, you either have to scan the drawing and make a picture of it, or take a picture with your phone and then, let's say, share it online, which can decrease your amount of detail that you did, because we all know how some phone cameras are. But when it comes to digital art, all of your, let's say, quality gets saved 100%. It's way easier to share with other people. So this is one of the best advantages when you want to, let's say, be an artist online. A better way to start is with digital art, because it's way easier to actually share with people. So when it comes to, let's say, sharing your drawings, digital art is definitely much better. A second main advantage of digital art is that it can be way more precise and detailed, because you have so much options when it comes to, let's say, the brushes that you use in your drawing apps or maybe drawing tablet. And there is also so much like options to save your images in different formats, which can be very beneficial when you want to actually save something in high quality. It obviously will result in, let's say, a higher file size, but it isn't that much of a difference if you're not doing something like, let's say, very professional. When you just draw casually, like I do, the file size isn't that much of a problem when it comes to saving quality and stuff like that. But when it comes to actually the drawings that are more detailed, I would recommend trying digital art, because when you actually get a hold of it, you can have drawings that are much more precise than when you're drawing normally, because, you just have so much more precision. You can have, like, let's say, the stability option on your drawing tablet, you can have the, let's say, stability option in your drawing app, which also can be beneficial. and your drawings can look smoother and maybe, let's say, more detailed. And also, one more thing that is good for digital art is that it can be more profitable than traditional art in the long run. And what I'm saying is that at the start, when you're drawing digitally, you need to obviously buy something like a drawing app and drawing tablet, which can be expensive. But when it comes to, let's say, making money out of your drawings, it's way easier to start digital because, like I said, digital art is much easier to share. It is a bit better when it comes to detail and stuff like that. So the profitability in digital art aspect is way higher than in the traditional art aspect. This is mainly due to the ability to, let's say, share your drawings easier and the ability to make them a bit more detailed. So now that we have pros discussed, let's go on to the cons of drawing digital. The main con of it is that when you're starting to do digital art, it is way more expensive than just drawing traditionally, since first of all, you need to have some sort of power source, like a computer maybe, or when you want to just go with a drawing tablet, those drawing tablets that have like screens and, built-in drawing apps can be extremely expensive. And when you go with a computer, you need to buy a drawing tablet and a drawing app. I know there are a lot of free options that can be very, let's say, high quality and very rewarding, but when it comes to the free options, when you want to, let's say, buy brushes, you need to pay for them. You need to sometimes pay for different options that can have a very big impact on your drawings. So this is probably the worst thing about digital art, is that at the start it is way more expensive than traditional. You need to buy a drawing app, you need to buy a drawing tablet, or maybe, let's say, a computer for your drawings, or maybe, let's say, if you want to just sketch, you need to buy, I don't know, like a tablet, an iPad, or stuff like that. It can be very hard for people to actually start getting into because it is just very large amounts of money. And the other thing that is bad about digital art is that it is a bit harder to learn. I know I said this like in my pros and cons when it comes to traditional, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to digital art, it is pretty hard to get a hold of it at the start, since there is so much different drawing apps that are out there. You need to, let's say, learn the different techniques that are used in that specific drawing app. You need to learn, I don't know, like the masking, the layers, the work with the different brushes, the coloring aspect, the different types of layers that are out there. And you need to also get a hold of like your, let's say, drawing line when it comes to the drawing tablet that you have. This is pretty hard to learn when you're just starting, which I can unfortunately say myself. When I was starting drawing digitally, I had a bit of a problem with drawing actually good lines, since I have been exposed to drawing normally for a very big portion of my life. So my, let's say, approach was that I just copy my flow with the digital world, and that isn't very effective. Your lines can look pretty accurate when it comes to your traditional drawings, but in the long run it just looks pretty bad. So I wouldn't recommend doing something like that for someone that is starting to do digital art. If you want to actually do drawings online, then you need to develop your second art style. And it is pretty hard to do. You need to learn different techniques, different methods to actually do stuff like that. So it is pretty hard to actually develop stuff like that. When it comes to the cons of it, like, this is the main one. And now, I think we can be done with comparing the stuff. So for like the final aspect of our video, let's now say, which of those styles is better? Is traditional art better or digital? I feel like, in my honest opinion, when you aim for, let's say, the price and the experience, I would definitely recommend traditional art more. But if you're aiming for profit and maybe, let's say, the community aspect of drawing, then try digital. Like, this question is very subjective when it comes to different people, and different people are going to tell you that traditional art is better, maybe because it's cheaper, maybe because it is, for example, in their opinion, better, and different people are going to tell you that digital art is better. In my honest opinion, if you're aiming for price and the experience, go for traditional. But if you're aiming for profit and the actual community behind art, go for digital. Those two ends are pretty different, but different aspects require different needs. So I think we are done with today's video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and also make sure to leave out ideas for future videos in the comments section. So yeah, Janek is out. Peace.